Cinema Classics is brought to you by the Gateway Film Center, 1550 North High Street, Columbus, Ohio. Further details and showtimes online at gatewayfilmcenter.org.
The award-winning Cinema Classics is produced by John DeSando and Johnny DiLoretto. Listen to the shows and read reviews online at WCBE.org. I'm Johnny DiLoretto.
I'm John DeSando.
This is Cinema
It
Classics.
sure is, and you are here at a big bout.
Yeah.
I mean,
This you think that McGregor-Mayweather fight was
right, man. This is nothing like Bigelow versus Soderbergh.
Yeah, just a fight like that one, which we just invented out of thin air.
Right, right. Which will make us no money.
No, I think it's right. I think it's an interesting comparison contrast to make, given that both filmmakers have films in theaters right now. Soderbergh has Logan Lucky.
You're right.
And Bigelow has Detroit.
Right.
Two very different movies.
And I think emblematic of the difference between the two of them.
And they have both taken very different paths.
Yeah,
yeah. Catherine Bigelow started in the 80s with a movie that really put her on the map called Near Dark, which is a really amazing, gritty, fun, bloody, pulpy, vampire motorcycle gang movie with Bill Paxton.
Oh gosh,
it's a great movie. Put her on the map. She continued to kind of do stuff like that, pulpy stuff.
Well, and
for a while.
Don't you think Blue Steel was
also
a terrific film?
No, not terrific.
Oh, it was
it's actually kind of a mess.
Isn't Jamie Lee Curtis in there?
Jamie Lee Curtis, Ron Silver doing his best Al Pacino. He's the Jewish Al Pacino. But that movie is, I remember studying that movie in some of my women's studies classes back in OSU because it had because of her unique perspective as a female director working in the action genre.
Yeah.
There were some interesting things to talk about. But yeah, she kind of kicked around doing these pulpy things
and
like
then Point Break.
Point Break, which became a cult classic.
Yeah, boy.
And it wasn't until really The Hurt Locker that she became the Oscar-winning prestige director that we now think of her as.
Yeah, I think that she was making that transition with K-19, the Widowmaker.
Really?
Yeah, I'm making a transition.
Okay.
Not saying that you are absolutely right. Hurt Locker takes her to a whole new level.
Yeah.
But I thought that K-19 was kind of moving her into a more interesting rather than the pulpy that you were talking about.
Yeah.
But Hurt Locker stands by itself. Its imagery alone, it's so unforgettable. With the bomb suit standing in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Gosh, she had some great images.
Yeah, it was something about wrapping her. Again, I keep saying this word pulpy, but wrapping
that's a good one.
Wrapping her pulpy mind around gritty, real-life, contemporary material sort of elevated that other stuff.
Then into some important historical events that she takes her attraction to the visceral and her ability to have images that are powerful and violent into Zero Dark 30, and then Detroit, currently out there.
Right.
I mean, Detroit doesn't get more brutal.
We briefly talked about this, I think privately, about the producers leaving her name off.
Yes, oh my God.
The promotional materials.
Not all of it, I think, but in the big signs that they would have.
Yeah, and certainly on the trailer.
Yeah, and on the trailer, they would say from the director of Hurt Locker, Zero Dark 30.
Not saying from Academy Award-winning director Catherine Bigelow. It's clearly a sexist omission.
And since we are strong feminists,
that's right,
we take real objection to that.
I do.
All right, let's not take too much time. Once again, it's our affection for women is taking over most of our show.
Yeah, right. Well, let's keep this brief. Steven Soderbergh pops up at around the same time as Catherine Bigelow. Sex, Lies, and Videotape.
Yeah.
Right? The mother of all independent movies.
Yes.
It really was the first, really was kind of the movie that kicked off what we now think of as contemporary independent film.
Indies, great example.
Low budget, and made a profit.
Yeah.
And interesting
Yeah.
material.
Complex relationships, some really frank scenes, really good stuff.
And just not operating by typical Hollywood narrative standards.
And that was 89.
That was 89.
Yeah.
So he came in a few years after Bigelow. But so here's my narrative with Steven Soderbergh.
Here we go, gang.
I hate Steven Soderbergh.
I know that.
I don't understand the praise. I don't understand why. The guy has made many more films than Catherine Bigelow.
Oh, yes.
Many of them nigh unwatchable, with the occasional commercial diversion.
Yeah, Magic Mike, for instance.
Magic Mike, the Ocean's movies.
Oh, yes.
And the far and away his best movie, which is...
Traffic?
No, the one with...
Aaron Brockovich?
No.
Well, okay, The Limey?
No.
Full Frontal?
No.
Thank You, Solaris?
No.
All right,
It's
good.
the one with George Clooney and Jennifer Lopez, the Elmore Leonard adaptation, Out of Sight.
Oh, boy, you are good. Oh,
That's his
I
best
didn't realize
movie.
that was Elmore Leonard.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh,
That's
I
his
would have
best
listened.
movie.
Oh, great. Great one. And Logan Lucky is now, there you go. It's about
You know what?
Wolf
I hated that movie.
I did too. I did not like
God.
it. So disappointed.
Yeah, and it had some positive review energy behind it, but I just couldn't get with it. It seemed out of joint.
Well, it was out of his wheelhouse, so to speak, when he takes to the hills with his protagonists. These are good old boys going to the racetrack to steal some money. It's a long ways from the ocean's sheen.
Yeah.
In which he seems very
Well,
comfortable.
but he's working with these people, a talented cast of people: Adam Driver, Channing Tatum, Daniel Craig. I felt he was directing them poorly. They were in a different movie. Their performances were pitched in this sort of 1970s hillbilly farce,
Yes.
and Soderbergh was directing it as though it was a kind of like gritty, low-budget heist movie.
Yes.
It was an awful tonal mashup.
I would say the best example to me is Daniel Craig's performance, which I thought was over the top, stretched.
I thought they were all were. The only person who wasn't over the top was Channing Tatum,
Right, exactly.
whose performance was actually a really heartfelt,
Yeah.
nuanced kind of thing. He was in a different movie.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway,
And he worked with,
Look,
just to say, he worked
yeah.
with Craig a while ago in The Limey. And I thought that was a decent, like the
it
one
was.
you brought up.
It was a nice throwback to the '60s British
Yes.
gangster movies.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, he has these little, I think he operates best as a commercial filmmaker. He's a smart guy. He's a resourceful filmmaker. But left to his own independent movie devices, he can be insufferable. It's when he's putting his directorial talents in the service of something more commercial that he's a little more tolerant.
Let's nod our heads to him for Aaron Brockovich and Traffic.
I don't know what's so great about Aaron Brockovich.
Well, he coaxed another actor to an Oscar.
Yeah, he got a good performance out of
that's
an already
something.
great actress.
Yeah, and he's one of the only. He's one of.
That's what I'm saying. I think in service of something else.
Yeah.
He's a good workman-like. director.
Okay, so let's say now we've put two prominent directors together.
Mm-hmm.
And this was your idea, and I thought it was a great one. They're completely different. Catherine Bigelow and Steven Soderbergh. Who has won our match tonight?
I think Bigelow.
Okay, because?
Just because of her ability to transition from some of the kinds of movies that she was making. I actually would like to see her make more movies like Point Break. Throw some of that now newfound gravitas behind something a little more commercial, and I think we'd have something that's sorely lacking in commercial cinema these days, which is good, smart filmmaking.
And I think that she's ramping herself up considerably in her topics, so that she really needs to do that kind of thing you're talking about. Open the valve a little bit, let some of that steam out, and enjoy yourself. She's getting so serious.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want her to lose touch with those roots.
Yeah.
You know, and by the same token, Steven Soderbergh should tighten up and maybe try something a little more, something with a little more significance, social significance, to tamp down his, you know, his sort of just randy indie approach to filmmaking.
Well, that's it for our two contenders for today. And depending on what comes into Johnny's head in the future, we'll get two more contenders.
Let's make a pay-per-view event out of it.